G'day, Nixie. First of all, on selection, the boys that are heading out of the team, Shoal and Frampton, both sort of interest for different reasons. Can you talk us through why they've both gone out again? It's not the first time they've been dropped this year, those two.
Yeah, I can give some, I guess, a bit more clarity around it. So Shoal, it's been a long year for Shoaly. Started the season in outstanding form, off the back of an incredible off-season where he drove the group. Probably at the moment where he's just lacking some confidence in himself. And on the weekend he had plenty of ball, but it wasn't probably up to the standard he was after. So from our point of view, sitting down with him and discussing footy and I guess the short term versus what we're looking at long term for him, we felt this week was one that was best he have a rest, freshen himself up, both mentally and physically, and then look to attack the last part of the season if that opportunity comes. Billy Frampton, he's an interesting one, Billy, because we were actually quite pleased with what we saw. As we've said, majority of this last month, looking at him back behind the footy, he's played some good footy. He showed he can play at the level last week. There's a fair bit of detail in that as well, though, where he's still got some work-ons when it comes to being a key defender. What we felt last week, our back six defended really well as a team. Billy's, as I said, he's going to continue to work on his game. This week's an interesting one. We're expecting up to 40k an hour wins. We're expecting rain. We know what it is to play down at Ballarat. It's a different challenge. And if we look at Billy's weapons and what he's shown in a really short time behind the ball, what he brings to our backs is really strong ball use. He's a good intercept marker. It may not be the conditions this weekend, and we're not saying the weather's perfect. We're not going to have a guess at that. But what we are going to guess is it's going to be a really red-hot contest this weekend. And we've got Nick Murray, coming back and available. And we felt that, Nick got the nod this weekend. And, as a defender who's shown, he's rock solid back there. The discussion with Billy was an easy one. I think he's in a position now that you talk about his future, and he's now got some more strings to his bow that he can bring into next year, go away, have an amazing off-season, come back even fitter, and look at a number of possibilities, playing behind the ball, playing ahead of the ball, ruck, depending on how fit he can get in this off-season. Now, that doesn't mean we won't look at him over the coming weeks, depending on how tomorrow goes.
Are you surprised at, I suppose in your eyes, a form drop-off from Shoaly after how he's finished last year and how he even started this year? Are you surprised that he's where he is at the moment?
I'm careful with my wording because it's not about surprise. It's a tough season, and for someone like Shoaly, he's starting his career out. Playing right through a season becomes quite a grind when you're a young player for coming into you and basically building your game. He showed what he's got. So he showed at the start of the year the level his game can go to, and maybe our expectation went a lot higher, and that's the level we expect at the moment. We know he's an elite ball user. We know he plays that wing really well. He gets up and down the ground as good as any in the competition. And there was a period of time there early in the season where he's one of the strongest runners in the comp. He's still running those numbers and patterns at the moment for us. And it happens across a career. There are times where you can't put a finger on exactly why it is. Your form's not where it can be. And he's in that position at the moment. And we sat down yesterday and we had a really good discussion and talked through it about if there was something that stood out to me as a coach that I could help him in, and he wasn't doing his extras, or he wasn't, his mindset wasn't right, he wasn't training at the level, then we would tell him straight away. Now, at this point, that's not the case. He's doing everything possible to be the best player he can. It's just not quite clicking for him. And sometimes that takes a bit of a circuit breaker. It takes a little bit of time for him to just go away, regroup himself physically and mentally, and come back. And we're doing that this weekend. If you want to talk about a similar player that's come into the side with Rowie. So Rowie will come back in. He went away, played in a trial game last weekend, and just released the shackles and looked really strong in that game. with conditions the way we think they'll be this weekend, we feel like Rowie, with that little bit of confidence now behind him, is a good in for us this weekend.
I just wanted to ask one more before I pass on to everyone else. Just on another player, on Fisher Mackesy. We're obviously all fascinated with him in the media because he was a high draft pick, and I know you guys talk about that a lot. But where is he at? I feel like we haven't heard too much about Fisher this year, whether it's in the best players in the twos or from you guys coming up. He's been thrown around a bit. Where do you think Fisher is at in his footy career, very early footy career?
Yeah, a couple of points. Firstly, he hasn't really been thrown around. He's been moved forward over the last 2 weeks. And that's just to finish the season off and give him an opportunity in a slightly different position. He's worked on his game all year. And if we go back to our pre-season or our off-season coming into to this year, he had quite a challenging off-season. A number of incidents that happen in the off-season that are unavoidable. Some families, personal issues that happened during that break, which he handled incredibly well. It put him on the back foot right from day one. And what we know over, I guess, being in the industry for as long as we have is if your off-season isn't quite at the level, it then makes your pre-season tougher. And that's really where we saw Fish earlier in the year. He was behind the eight ball from a fitness point of view. So we spent a fair bit of time this year in early rounds working on him getting back to what is AFL fitness. Sometimes you underestimate how fit these guys are and how different, what the difference can be between being 5% off. So he's worked on that throughout this season. He's grinded through the start of the year. What he has shown is he started to run on top of the ground. He started to see the best of Fish. We put him forward over the last couple of weeks. He was really impressive in the trial game we played last weekend. Unfortunately, he was in a Richmond jumper when he was playing that. But that's the challenges we're dealing with at the moment. But he attacks the ball. He looks like he's now moving the way you expect a key position player to move. And so we talk about Billy Frampton. Fish is in a similar position. He's now adding to his game. He's shown that he's flexible. He can play both ends of the ground. He'll go away now, and this off-season will be super important for him, to make sure he comes back in condition that has him ready to go. And I've no doubt that he'll be pushing for selection. If not over the next month, it's going to be a challenge for him because of the games and the situation we have with COVID. But definitely early next season, I know he's going to knock it over in the off-season. He's going to come back ready to go.
Cheers, Nixie.
Anyone else, guys? Just in terms of back to Shoal for a moment, Nixie, what exactly does he need to work on? You're talking about a lack of confidence at the moment. What aspects of his game have you asked him to go and work on?
Well, I mean, if you look at the weekend, Shoal's got no issues with positioning, playing his role for the team. At the moment, it's just the small things that he's working on, that ability to be clean with the footy, to execute, when he gets his opportunities. And these are things that are Shoal's weapons. These are things that, we should just write it down. Right in the book when Shoal got the ball, he added to our offence. He made it really difficult for the opposition. So by no means are these tough work-ons for Shoal. As I mentioned before, it's not necessarily Shoal going away and spending hour after hour working on his kicking. It's exactly the opposite at the moment. It might be him freshening himself up, going away, almost stripping back some of the thoughts that are going through his head in a game and getting back to just playing football. It's a tough one, for him at the moment because he's doing everything, as I said before. You can't ask more of him. If anything, my last words to him yesterday were, how about having a little bit of a spell, both mentally and physically? I don't want to see you go out and run 15 Ks this weekend off your own bat. And that is something that Shoal is sometimes up to.
And how's he taken all this? Obviously, given how he started the season, was obviously talked up early and finished last year well, and now dropped for a third time. How's he taken these conversations and having to deal with this?
He's taken it really well. He understands that, a career is not made on 2 or 3 games. That's really what we've looked at. It's been the last couple of games have been one where we're scratching our heads a little bit for him and saying, okay, it's time for us to break this up. It's not necessarily anything he's doing wrong. It's just not clicking for him at the moment. So this is part of a career. There's no issues at all. He's taken it really well. Go away, he'll freshen up, and hopefully we see him over the last month.
Just on Thilthorpe, how close was he this week, and when can we expect to see him back?
He's been close the last couple of weeks. In the end, this week, it came down to a number of different factors. We wanted to freshen him up. We've well and truly done that. He's training really well. He's ready to go. So, if you ask Riley, he's keen to play. We looked at this weekend and looked at the conditions, the balance of our side, what style of game we're going to take down to Ballarat, the opposition we're playing against. And we felt, one more week, both from where Riley's at and what he's shown this season, but also the team balance and the connection we've got out there on the ground at the moment. We felt one more week for Riley was where it's at. So, again, sitting down during this week, talking through it with him, it's actually interesting when you look at, obviously we keep a wellness rating on our players. When you look at the majority of our group and you compare what they've gone through over the last week and a half from a sleep point of view, looking at the stress levels of our players, there's not a major increase. We've done a fantastic job in that as a staff and as a playing group, but there are challenges that come when you're locked up in a hotel room, when you're sleeping in a different bed, when you're away from home. And some of those factors also came into it, that we want to do the right thing by, a really important player in our football club, and he'll be an important player for hopefully a decade or more going forward.
Did that cut out for everyone, guys? Did everyone get enough of that?
Most of it
cut out a bit.
Most of it, yeah.
Sorry, boys. Let's keep
Happy to pass it over to someone else.
Josh?
Sure. Nixie, just on not directly on the Shoal omission, but you've spoken a few times this year about players who live by the value. I just want to know what do you look for in a young player? I look at someone like Sam Berry, who averages half the amount of football a game, obviously a different role to Shoal each week, but one of the first names selected seemingly each week. So what is it that you're looking for in young players that ensure they basically get a gig every week?
Yeah, good question. We have team values that we look for, and we select the team in and around those values. But there's a lot more to picking a team than just individual performance. And I think Sam at the moment, we talk at length in match committee around what's best for the team going into each week. We just had a power failure.
And we're back.
It's all happening here. We talk about what's best for the team and also what's best for the individual. Sam's playing a different role to what he has as a junior. Sam's an on-baller and has played that area. He's an in and under style player. Now, at this point in time, we've seen some really positive signs from Sam ahead of the ball. He's so clean with the footy. He's a one-touch player, really positive for what we're looking at going forward. The last couple of weeks, he hasn't had as many opportunities in those areas, and the game hasn't quite gone his way. But we have a good look at this weekend, and again, we make decisions not only around the individual and I guess what a lot of people look at, which is the stats. How many kicks, marks, handballs does this player have? It's not all about that. There's a lot more to picking a side than just how many kicks a player's had. From Sam's point of view, we go into a game this weekend. I'm no weather expert, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be quite cool. I think there's a 100% chance of rain, which means it's probably going to rain at some point during the game. High winds. We're playing against a team that are probably the best contested team in the competition. Well, not probably, they are at the moment. They sit on top of the table. It's going to be a real battle. We believe Sam Berry at his best brings exactly that. And so that's where Sam gets the nod this weekend. Now, I guess the pressure on Sam now is to go out and perform that, back up the decision we've made and show us we made the right decision. But we're confident he'll do that. We're confident he's a really well-balanced player. He does a lot more stuff off ball than what a lot of people see. And I hope he gets the rewards. I hope he performs again for the team and we can come away with a win like we did last week.
Has the last 2 weeks of Tom Lynch, the way he's sort of been able to hit the ground running, his ability to connect and hit the scoreboard, has that changed at all in your mind or giving you some more clarity in your mind about how you see his future?
Well, it hasn't changed anything in my mind. My mind wasn't made up at all about what we were doing going forward. So what it has done is shown that, Lynchy's been able to come in and play a really important role for our footy club. He's competed ahead of the ball as good as any. He's brought the on-field leadership we knew he would. He's playing some great footy, and it's not just on-field. He's doing a lot of stuff off-field with the group as well. So it's a real positive for Tom, and as we have done right throughout, he and I and the football club will continue to have conversations around what it looks like going into next year. Nothing's locked in that space. And, similar as we've discussed this right the way through with a lot of these experienced players. We talk about Matt Crouch, we talk about Daniel Talia, Dave McKay's another one. We are very mindful of what it looks like in the short term, but more importantly, what this footy club looks like in the long term. And we have a draft coming up. We have a trade period coming up. There's so many factors that come into these decisions. And the guys have been really, really good and really open in these conversations as we have as a footy club, and we'll continue to be that way going forward.
I suppose the difference with Matt is he still hasn't been able to get on the park, and you mentioned a few weeks ago that is a factor in your decision making for next season. So each week he fails to get up. Does that take him further away from your calculation?
No, not really. I mean, we'd love to see Matt get out on the park and play some footy and show us that, he's an important part of where we're heading. But at no stage is if Matt has another setback and he's unable to get out there, that's not going to make our decision. It's going to impact what we talk about going forward. But at this point, as I said, it's a similar conversation we're having with Tom and David and Daniel. It's an ongoing conversation about what's best for the individual, what's best for the team, and what's best for the football club. Now, none of that is locked in at this point in time. They're going to be ongoing. They're continual conversations, and they've been great conversations. Sometimes tough. Players would love to have more clarity around what the future looks like. With that, we give as much information as we can, and that's from both ends. They give us as much as they can also. So quite comfortable with where those conversations are at this point.
A bit of a role change against the Hawks for Brodie Smith, probably to help with that connection, high half forward and wing. He was saying during the week he's asked to go back to half back. What do you do with him this week?
Yeah, we'll look at the oppo again this week. So Brodie has such an impact on the game. We know, when he is down back, he sees the game really well. That's where he's built his game from. We're going to continue to try and put Brodie in positions where we think he can impact the game for us. And last week we slightly changed his role. From a performance point of view, you look at how the team performed and were able to get a solid win for the footy club. Well, Brodie was a big part of that. Now, it may be, again, from a kicks, marks, handballs, people sort of look at it and go, he doesn't have the same impact as having 30 off of half back. Well, as a coaching group and as a squad, we come in and we reward certain things that we see from players. And Brodie's one of the most important players at our footy club. And there's a lot of stuff that, he'll continue to work on, but there's a lot of weapons that he brings. So, this week, it's more than likely that Brodie will play a little bit more behind the ball, and that's with the balance of our side. But at some stages in the game, you'll probably see him up around the wing again. So we'd like to, keep that flexible. We also don't want to mess with Brodie and continue to change his role too often. But he's a reasonably mature player now, so there are certain things he can handle.
Just one last one from me. I know you like to take a game at a time, but I don't think you've probably coached in a home showdown. I know there's a lot of water to go under that bridge, but how much would you relish that and the chance to come back to Adelaide next week?
I'll always look forward to a home showdown. especially if we're able to get 50,000 in the stadium. Now, talk about getting ahead of ourselves. That's definitely not on the cards at the moment. So we actually don't know exactly where that's going to end up. That would be getting a little bit ahead of ourselves to start talking about, a full packed stadium of Crows members and supporters. But if you brought it up now, geez, I'd love to do that. Again, we've got the Bulldogs tomorrow. That's the challenge that's in front of us. And I can honestly say in this interview, we haven't looked at next week because we actually don't know what next week is yet.
Thanks, Nixie.
Theo?
You're on mute, Theo.
Good point. Well played. Have you guaranteed you're coming home Sunday?
No, there's no guarantees around coming back at this point.
There's no guarantees about anything.
Seems that whenever we talk about anything to do with COVID, the lights go out.
Well, hopefully the power out for you next week. But what happens Sunday?
Look, we've got no guarantees of coming back to Adelaide at this point. So we're in conversations with SA Health, as are the AFL, and the SA government around what that might look like. And there are so many complexities to that. None more than actually looking after the community and making sure we're doing the right thing. As I said before, our group have been outstanding the way they've conducted themselves here in Melbourne. We've made sure that we've stuck tight. We've kept guys in-house. We've done everything we possibly can to give us the best opportunity to come home. Now, at this point in time, we don't have any clarity around that. We're set to play tomorrow. We'll get that done, and then we'll remain flexible as we have the whole time. And we'll wait on SA Health and the SA government as well as the AFL to give us instruction from there.
So the AFL released a statement yesterday saying you would return home. Has that not been communicated to you, or the process hasn't been put in place?
No, there's just nothing locked in place at this point. So when you talk about processes, there's so many complexities around, quarantining. What does that mean then for, 2 weeks' time, and so on. So there's a lot of detail still to go through around that. No flights are booked. Nothing's locked in stone at this point. We'd love to get home, but we also understand, there's so much still to go through.
So in the event that SA Health says you will have to quarantine and you won't be able to train, will you remain in Victoria?
Again, Theo, it's an answer we can't actually give you at the moment, because we'll sit down when we do get to that point, and we'll have discussions as a footy club around what that looks like. And there are so many different different complexities in that. There's so many things we've got to look at. We've got basically a travelling group of around 60 or 70 people here at the moment that all have different circumstances, when it comes to family back in Adelaide. The inability to train if we do come back to Adelaide. What does that mean if we're going to go into a game on a Saturday? Our high performance, we'll need to make decisions around that. It's a really tough one for me to answer.
Yeah, fair enough. Just lastly, maybe a little bit of a cheeky one, but Isaac Rankin being left out of the Gold Coast side. Do you monitor specifically high-end talent from other teams and where they're at? Not directly related to Isaac, but when you notice a player that might be of interest is out of a team, does that always pique your interest?
I'll be lying if I said it didn't. We keep a really close eye on the league, on game trends, on individuals, former South Australians that have been drafted, players that we'd have loved to have picked up in the draft in previous years that unfortunately, due to the picks we had, we weren't able to pick up. We're well and truly on top of these things. But at the same time, a player being dropped, you don't know the ins and outs of that. We're always keeping an eye on the rest of the league.
Do you just flick Reedy a text and say, get on the phone?
No, I didn't on that one.
Oh, thanks, mate. I reckon I'm pretty good.
Tom, I can see you on the call, mate. Do you want to ask him?
Yeah, I just got one question for you, Nixie. Do you look at the performances of athletes like Kyle Chalmers and Jessica Fox and take any inspiration from that?
Yeah, we do. And we do that as a group. We've been lucky enough to be, I guess, locked down in a time where, an Olympics is on. We take huge inspiration out of watching, all of our athletes perform. And it's allowed us to stick tight here too and, be together when a lot of these, I guess, key moments in the Olympics are taking place. Watching Titmus swim was incredible. As a group, we look at that and no doubt in time, these are the sort of athletes that you'd love to get in and talk to the group about what they've gone through, over a long period of time to get to that key moment. But we've been blessed by having the Olympics on, as I'm sure a lot of people have in this tough time.